Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking a
categorically,
question. Don't
Mr.
be
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You are
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can
No,
you
I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir. I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Dave versus the MSM. Happy New Year. I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and thanks for networking this information to anyone and everyone you know. It's the key, I believe, to 2024. You know, we have the cult, the Globalist Syndicate, the New World Order crowd, the Criminal International Banking Syndicate, whatever you want to call them. They're on the run. Why are they on the run? Well, because of the great awakening of the public. Not just the United States, but worldwide. So I'm going to give you what, first of all, my New Year's resolution is for 2024. It's to be more opinionated, less passive, and less open-minded. So, that being the case, let's work on our New Year's resolution. Today's presentation is going to be based on the Great Freedom Reset. This is what the cult is panicking about. This is why they're acting out. This is why we saw the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. This is why we saw the this and this thing. Remember, I still can't go there on this platform. This is why we saw the whole Middle East situation erupt in October. They needed cover because of the awakening, and they're concerned that people will be awakened to what they have in store in 2024. I believe the big event in 2024 is going to be a financial takedown. And as the system, which has been rigged to blow to bring the buildings down in their own footprint, sound familiar? They want you to point at Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, the Middle East as the reason it's coming down. When in fact, it has been rigged by the banking families to come down, and they've positioned themselves appropriately to protect themselves. And they're concerned about that awakening. And another way for the awakening is to call it the Freedom Reset. They have their Great Reset that's directly opposed to a Freedom Reset, because their Great Reset is about stripping your freedom and liberty and future away from you. From Fringe Finance, the Great Freedom Reset has begun. The global economy, and more importantly, the entire world as we know it, is about to undergo a seismic shift toward freedom. That journey eventually ends in the dethroning of the likes of globalists, with the top part of that snake represented by the likes of Klaus Schwab, central banks, and the lobotomized far-left maniacs that have lobbied for the Great Reset, that eventually results in the loss of one or more, read all, of our civil liberties and our current quality of life. We have a multitude of examples of this awakening. Now, recently we had this election in Argentina, and Javier Milei, an outspoken and economic libertarian, won the Argentine presidency after promising to aggressively tackle inflation, shutter the country's central bank, and address these globalist culture programs to diminish them and to significantly reduce government. Okay. Now, some of you have gotten upset with me because I said, okay, this is a start, but let's look, not just listen to the words, but let's look at the actions. So one action of which was that Milei, once in office, started cutting huge number of agencies. Good. But then he did a couple things. He linked the Argentine peso to the United States dollar, which is backed by what? If your answer is vapor, ding, 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 you're right. Why, if you're looking to bolster the financial stability of the country, why aren't you linking it to hard assets? Gold, silver, oil, natural gas, commodities, resources. Why are you linking it to paper backed by vapor? Right. And then, if you deep dive on his background, I mentioned he was an economist. Okay. He was the head economist for a company by the name of Maxima, which is a private pension company. But when you look into that company, it's a private pension company which is 40% owned by BlackRock, a globalist cult organization, which might explain why several of his first appointments to bolster the economy, he brought in J.P. Morgan Chase's former banking executives. And we've presented for years the problem with that organization and their ties to the cult. So we got to be a little skeptical there, I think. Let's hope for the best, but hope is not a strategy. We need to monitor what's really happening there, because there's some concerns. I recently had geopolitical analyst Harley Schlanger on my show, and he spoke in depth about those concerns as well. So let's just not all say, oh, somebody who's talking the talk, this is great. Talking the talk is good. But it's not everything. It's actions. Now, you want to talk somebody that's into actions, let's talk about what's happening in Holland. There was an election there that, boy, you're not going to hear about in the bought-off lamestream fake media. Geert Wilders and the Conservative Freedom Party won the Dutch election. And this is really important because Wilders has a track record, not just talk, but action, of supporting individual empowerment and freedom-based initiatives. When he won election, he stated, quote, "The hope of the Dutch people is that they will get their country back." Yeah. And in fact, right when he won election, the Dutch central bank admitted that it is prepared for a new gold standard. Not a link to more vapor dollars backed by nothing, but gold. This is from Jan Nieuwenhuis. In a recent interview, the Dutch central bank shares it has equalized its gold reserves relative to its GDP to other countries in the Eurozone and outside of Europe. If there is a financial crisis, the gold price will skyrocket, and official gold reserves can be used to underpin a new gold standard, according to the Dutch National Bank. We've had other developments in other countries that are supportive of the freedom reset. Italy with Meloni winning. Now, I know there's some issues with Meloni cuddling up a little bit to some globalists. But again, actions speak louder than words. But some of her actions have been very supportive on the freedom front. In Germany, the AfD win. In Spain, the Vox win. We talked about Argentina. We talked about the Netherlands. But these are very, very important developments that are wigging out the syndicate. And there are situations happening here in the United States that are also supportive of a freedom reset. In Georgia, judge issues huge decision on the Georgia voting machines. Judge Amy Totenberg, not a conservative, by the way. I think her sister works at NPR. Has issued a decision concurring there is sufficient reason to believe that the electronic voting machines used by the state of Georgia have, quote, her words, not mine, substantial flaws. The district court judge found, and this is from Kyle Becker, that there is sufficient cause to believe that there may be, quote, cybersecurity deficiencies and unconstitutionally burdened plaintiffs' First and 14th Amendment rights and capacity to case effective votes that are accurately counted. Here's what she said. These are her words, quote, the court cannot wave a magic wand in this case to address the very challenges to our democracy and election system in recent years, including those presented in this case. But reasonable, timely discussion and compromise in this case, coupled with prompt, informed legislative action, might certainly make a difference that benefits the parties and the public. The court notes that the record evidence does not suggest that the plaintiffs are conspiracy theorists of any variety. Indeed, some of the nation's leading cybersecurity experts and computer scientists have provided testimony and affidavits on behalf of plaintiff's case in the long course of this litigation, end quote. This is really important. And then, on one day, toward the end of December, there were a multitude of freedom-based developments that happened in our just-us system. And it was a really bad day for the cult regarding their weaponization of the legal system. Let's go through a couple of them. There was a whistleblower complaint against the prosecutor in the Trump case, this Jack Smith character, Globalist, based on when Smith was working at The Hague as an international special prosecutor. A former federal agent filed with the Department of Justice includes an affidavit by eyewitnesses who claims that this prosecutor that is now focused on Trump, this Jack Smith character, oversaw the extortion and deposit of millions of dollars of bribes into, quote, black funds, end quote, while prosecuting crimes in Kosovo. The ex-federal agent John Moynihan, who was also involved actually in looking at the Clinton Foundation, dug up a lot of stuff there that was deep-sixed, filed the Department of Justice whistleblower complaint against this Jack Smith character, claiming Smith was, quote, an active participant in a scheme to extort millions of dollars from wealthy individuals targeted for investigation and prosecution in Kosovo, and with the payments to this fund, this slush fund, well, they weren't prosecuted. And here's another interesting thing, because everybody talks about Hunter. What about this guy, Beau Biden? You know, the dead son of Joe Biden, who kept saying he died in combat or something, that he was a lawyer. He had been spent a short amount of time in the Middle East behind a desk as a lawyer, came back, died of brain cancer here in the United States years later, okay? Not combat. This whole thing where this money laundering occurred with Kosovo was the same place where Beau Biden had rebuilt their post-war justice system. While that was happening on that day, the same day, Judge Shutkin, overseeing the Trump trial in D.C., agreed that she no longer had jurisdiction over the Trump case because of his immunity appeal to the appeals court, that she was out of it, that she couldn't push this, because the whole goal has been pushing these cases before a primaries, before Super Tuesday, before an election, right? While that was happening, Hunter, who had been subpoenaed to testify behind closed doors for a deposition, which always happens before the public hearings, did not show. And that deposition was supposed to be about his money laundering activities on behalf of him and his entire family. But he did hold a press conference, couldn't go into the Capitol, held a press conference on Capitol Hill grounds. Now you might say, well, he didn't know any better. Most people are not aware. You know, they're aware of Hunter Biden and his, you know, the stuff, you know, all this terrible stuff. Most people don't know. You know, he's a lawyer. Do you know where he graduated from? Yeah, Yale Law School. Oh, how special. Oh, yeah, he should know better. But it's not just that he didn't show for his press. He threw his father's alibi and his father under the bus when he did that press conference. And here's what was written. Hunter Biden just tore up his father's defense of corruption allegations by arguing that his father was, quote, not, quote, financially, end quote, and we know otherwise, involved in the business deals. A tacit admission Joe Biden was involved in other ways, directly contradicting Joe Biden's blanket denials. And while all that was occurring, same day, the U.S. Supreme Court decided to hear a case that could undo the Capitol riot charges against hundreds of protesters on that January day, as well as Trump. Somebody in the know legally said this, Legal Eagle, quote, if overturned by the Supreme Court, it would be a historic humiliation for Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, and Biden. And more importantly, it would free many prisoners who've been in the gulag for many, many, many months. Important, Legal Eagle again told me, very expert on constitutional law and criminal law. The odds are really high that the Supreme Court is going to overturn the lower court decision just by them taking this case. And this statute that they're implementing, erroneously, many people feel, illegally, weaponize the Department of Justice against those from that January event. No, folks. There is a great freedom reset. It's called the Great Awakening. And it's in contradistinction to the Great Reset of the cult. They're panicked. They're desperate. That's why we see all these operations, whether it's the endless funding of this goat rodeo, right, in Ukraine, or whether it's what's going on in the Middle East. No. They're desperate. They're panicked. They're going to bring the system down this year. You've got to protect yourself. But the bottom line is, folks, they don't want you to know this. We're winning this. We're winning this freedom-based war. And the way we finish it off is by collectively, all of us getting off the couch, educating and empowering our family, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, maybe even people we don't even know, and letting them know what's really going on. Use our videos, use our platform, davejanda.com, as a place for them to go, a link, so they too can get the information. Let me be the bad guy. You don't have to be the bad guy. Let me be the bad guy telling them what's really going on. Because the more people we have awakened, the more people we have empowered, and the sooner we end this reign of terror and this freedom-stripping agenda by the cult. I believe in decades to come, historians will look back on the last couple years, and in particular this coming year, and say, that was the year. That was the year that freedom was reset. That's not hopium. It's fact. We still have work to do. So let's get to it. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Please come on by. A lot of free public information, but where the real meat of the matter is on the premium service content. It's $9 a month for priceless information that puts you not weeks, not months, but years, and in some cases, a decade ahead of the curve. I hope you'll join our freedom family for the new year. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.